Hello and welcome back to another episode of Transport Fever 2. We're here in Brookshire County on our Tacoma to Houston train line, and in this video we're going to be focusing mainly on rebalancing some of our cargo lines coming out of our cargo hubs and detailing the remaining industries on the goods line that we've been putting off for quite a while. And so mostly we're going to be taking a look at this area here, the fuel and resources coming in and out of here, as well as over by Salt Lake City, this whole area, and making sure that these resources are coming in and out appropriately for everything that we need. And then we have these industries over here by Roswell, the chemical plant, the oil refinery, and the oil wells. We're going to try to get these detailed as much as possible in this video. I'm not sure if we'll be able to hit all three industries, but we'll definitely try to get one or two done here, which is what we're going to start on first down here at this chemical plant. And so what I think the main goal is for this area is first getting a much larger train station in here, so we'll get that situated. We'll get this placed in a much nicer way that can actually fit the train that we're running. We'll expand on this chemical plant industry so that it fills up the space a bit more. And then we'll maybe try to make something a little nicer for a drop-off spot. We'll probably just still use a drop-off point instead of just a full station, but having a little bit nicer or designated drop-off area would probably benefit this. Alright, and so let's hop into this, and then we will be back once we finish making this chemical plant area. Alright, and so now that we have the chemical plant detailed, we have this whole new area here with a very large building sort of this way, and then 3 smaller buildings connected to these tanks right next to where our drop-off is going to be. So in order to fix this, we're just going to have to manage the line and move this from here to there, and that should deal with it just fine. We'll have to wait and see what we need to do with the line rate, but we can now get rid of that unload stop, and I believe this should go back to functioning as it normally would. And so then the next area we're going to take a look at is the oil refinery itself up here. I'm not too sure how much more we're going to add on to this, because this industry actually kind of looks pretty good just how it is. So maybe we'll just add some detail to around this truck stop, and that might just have to be all that we need to do in order to make this area look appropriate. So let's get into that, and then again we will be right back after we finish up detailing this area. Alright, and I think this is going to be good enough for the oil refinery. We did end up having a little bit of a backup of our trucks while we were redoing this station, but hopefully this is starting to even itself back out again. We'll just have to keep an eye on it as we continue moving forward, but I think where we're at now is a pretty good spot in terms of detailing. I don't think we're going to get to these oil wells just because that's going to take a bit longer to do due to just all the smaller things that have to go into that. But at least in terms of the oil refinery and our chemical plant down here, I think I'm in a pretty okay spot to leave these in. Alright, now I want to focus in on our cargo hubs and making sure that our distribution of resources is going out okay. So taking a look here, first thing I notice is we have a lot of resources waiting to go into Roswell, and so I think that means we need more ships here. Let's see if we have better ones that we can use. And so we do have this boat that is a little bit faster and carries a little bit more resources than our current boats. We could probably switch to those. And I'm not sure if that will be enough. So we'll duplicate this and get a 5th boat running on this line. Now, the issue that we're running into is we have 3 resources trying to head into Roswell, but these boats only have 2 compartments, which means they can only carry 2 resources at a time. So pretty much this boat, as it's coming in here, is going to have to choose between 2 of the 3 resources, so construction materials, machines, and food. It'll probably pick the 2 that are the highest, so we'll probably see it pick up construction materials and machines. And that's pretty much the cycle that comes through and repeats every time. So yeah, it did pick up machines and construction materials. And so I think eventually we'll unlock boats with more compartments, or eventually we can just split this line up. But for now, I think we're doing okay with the resources that we're currently moving around. And then we are going to have to be aware that it looks like Roswell is demanding a bit more of these resources, so we'll need to make sure that we're getting those delivered into the city. So it looks like construction materials could use a bit more. So we'll come in here, and I think 2 more trucks, maybe even 1 more to get us up to 9, should handle our demand. So that line rate was 158. We're requesting 161 in Roswell. And it looks like food might need some help as well. We need 154 food, and our current food rate is 99. So I think we'll get 2 more trucks. That'll get us just under 150, and that should be able to start handling that demand. And then coming back to this cargo hub, it looks like everything else is doing just fine. We don't really have any issues here getting resources out of this train station. So let's head over and take a look at our Salt Lake City hub and just make sure everything works good over there. And so here everything seems to be doing okay. We have nothing really waiting or backing up here. We do still need to get some of these tools out of here. Although that might be skewed because I think this is one of our tools trains. So maybe we just recently unloaded all this. So we'll come back and double check that later. But one of the big things I want to take a look at is our line coming out to Houston and getting some of this fuel out of here, as this seems like it might be starting to clog up our trains in terms of platform space. So here we have this train heading out towards Houston, and it's not carrying any fuel because all the fuel comes from Houston. We might be able to just simply get away by adding 2 or 3 more fuel cars on the end of each train. We'll follow this one into Houston and see just sort of what happens there. We'll see how much it takes, how much is left, and everything else like that. So we'll be back in a moment once this train makes its way back to the Houston station. And so here comes our train into the station, and it looks like it's just long enough to fit in here without blocking our road up here. And so I think that's going to have to be one of the first things we solve, is this crossing. So maybe we can move this out a little farther down this way, and then this train won't be as in the way, and then hopefully that'll mean that these trucks have to stop less. But anyway, we can see here that this train did pick up a pretty good load of resources for its trip back, but definitely needs more capacity for fuel. And so I think what we're going to do is we're going to first move this road down a little bit to give ourselves a bit more space, and then we're going to rebuild this train. We're going to rebalance it, and then maybe instead of 3 trains, instead of 2 trains, we get a 3rd train running, and that'll help with getting resources out of this station here. And so in order to do this, we're going to have to pause, and then from here we can bring our streets out. So we'll bring this road out to here, and then this is where it will turn and cross the tracks. Now we do have to rebuild this to save these trucks, but then coming up here we can simply delete some more of these roads and then just drag and connect this back up. Now we will also upgrade this all to a country road until we get to about here, as I think that would make sense. And then we just need to connect this road, and things should be back to running normal again. Alright, so hopefully that doesn't mess up with our line rates too much. But anyway, back to our train. We're going to try to keep a similar composition to this. So the 11 flat cars, 12 box cars, and 9 tank cars. We'll slightly adjust the ratio to some of the obvious needs. So we'll probably get a few more tank cars on the train. And then I think we can go from there and start scaling things up after we set this line. So we'll come in here and build ourselves a new train. Alright, and so here's our train. We ended up going with 12 of each car type. I believe this will be a pretty good base to start with. So we'll replace those. We can find one of these trains. And then we'll let this go back and forth once or twice before we figure out what kind of rebalancing we need to do. But this train should be able to handle hills much better, and it has slightly higher capacity for fuel, so we should see it be able to carry a bit more fuel than it was before as well. Alright, so I think for now 2 trains will be just fine on this line, but we will think about increasing our output, as obviously we could be bringing in much more tools. So that'll be one of our first priorities. And it looks like construction materials we're still doing okay at because we're producing those in the city. Food is pretty much there. It's a little under 3/4. And then, of course, fuel and tools is what's really sort of needed in this area. So let's just take a look at our tools line and see if there's anything there that we're missing. So we have tools. We can move those at a rate of 311. And our train is moving resources at a rate of 610. But only 1/3 of that can carry tools, I believe. Or actually, I think the box cars and the flat cars can carry tools. So we're bringing tools in, I believe, at a rate of what would be a little under 400, since this train isn't entirely full. So, or maybe even just half. So about 300, which almost lines up with these numbers, but I'm not too sure how accurate that is. But I think obviously what we need to do is bump up this tools factory production a lot more. If we can get this maxed out at 800, I think I'd be happy with that. I think we'll also be redoing this train, the one that takes tools from here over to Salt Lake City and then brings resources back for Portland. So, yeah, I think let's do that. So, in order to get this up at a 1-to-1 ratio, we need to be bringing planks in at a rate of 800. And currently this is operating at a rate of 1,092, so split that in half because of this. I think we're going to have to split this into 2 lines just due to the different rates now. So first, let's expand our docks here. And for some reason it says we can't do that. So let's see if we can fix that quick. Alright, so we have this dock expanded. I think pretty soon we're going to have to come through and start updating some of our older industries. Make them a little bit bigger for the demand that's coming through. But anyway, let's make sure that everything out here is going well. And so if we want our tools factory producing 800 tools, we're going to have to make sure we're getting twice as much out of our logs. So we'll need a total of 1,600 rate being delivered to this dock here. And so let's just check our lines. So here, this one is 420. This one is 400. And then this one is 350-ish. And so all those together end us up around 1,100, I think. And so that's definitely not where we want to be. And due to how old these trucks are, we might be able to just get away with upgrading the trucks, and that might help us out a lot in terms of our rates. So let's first just go through, we'll upgrade these trucks, and then we'll come through and add up the rates again, see if they add up to over 1,600. And so at a first glance, it looks like these all add up to over 1,600. So we have 620, 660, and then 550. And I believe, just some quick rounding, that would get us up to 1,800. So some of these, we could probably afford to get rid of a few trucks. So for instance, this one we could probably get rid of a few. And I think that's all I'm comfortable doing, because we do want to account for some variation. I'd rather have too many logs waiting here than too few. So now what that means is we'll probably want to pause this so that we can manage the line, and we'll cut out the tools part of the line. So here it loads the planks, and now this does mean that we will be traveling empty halfway back on this line, but I think for boats that's really just fine. It's nothing really that we need to worry about. So we'll just fix that, and hopefully we'll see this line rate adjust immediately. Or we'll at least give it time, but we need to now get some more boats to take the planks to the tools factory. And these will end up on a line coming from here to the tools factory. We'll make sure we have this set up appropriately. Now that should work. Alright, now we have our boats starting to go around. I think we're going to have to wait a little bit before things start fully working, but I think, first of all, we're going to have to expand this again. And I'm not sure what we're colliding with. Oh, I think we're colliding with our fences here, so unfortunately, we're going to have to try to Well, hopefully we just need to delete these ones, and yeah, it looks like that worked just fine. So we'll get some more landings on here, and it looks like we have to deepen the water. Alright, and so now that this is expanded, in order to get the most out of these docks, I think we're going to have to allow alternate platforms on these. So we'll do it for both of them, just so we can get as much in and out as possible. So we should be able to let that play. And of course it's going to take a while for everything to sort of recalibrate between these docks, but we'll have to wait, rebalance once things get settled in. But for now, I think we can start to take a look at this tools train and figure out the rates we need there and the ratio of what's going to go into Portland and everything else like that. Alright, so we'll be assuming that eventually this tools factory will be pumping out 800 tools, and so we need about 100 of those into Portland, which looks like we're already doing, which then will leave us with about 700 tools that we can then distribute into Salt Lake City and Houston. And so taking a look at our current line, this is at a rate of 505, which even less than that since we have a few fuel cars attached. So we'll just estimate probably 450 is the rate that we're coming out of here with. And so I think we can build a much better train. We'll get one that hopefully we can still just keep our 2 trains that are on this line. If we have to add a third, that's fine. But ideally, I'd like to keep these 2 trains. And then let's check before we do this if we need to bring more fuel into Portland. And it looks like Portland only needs about 60 fuel. And we can see here this train isn't even bringing back a full load of fuel. So I think we can keep it at 4 cars when we replace this. But we'll come in and then we can get a more powerful engine, tack on a few more flat cars, and see what line rate we end up from all of that. Alright, so here's our new trains. We'll replace these. It's a few less flat cars, but we did opt for the super heavy ones. But that shouldn't make too much of an impact on performance. But we can see here our rate is a little bit higher. And so I think we can start to maybe push this up, get 2 more flat cars on each of these. So we'll do that, we'll see where that brings us to. So that brings us to just under 600. And I think we'll leave that for now. Let's just make sure that our trains can actually do this before we fully commit to this. Make sure this train isn't too long for our stations and that it still does make us money, since we probably upped our running cost. But we should now be moving substantially more tools between the tools factory and our hub. And so we should start to see that reflected throughout the rest of our network then, given enough time. And we can see our huge fleet of boats starting to deliver into the sawmill. Hopefully those spread out over time, because we currently have almost none over here at the forests. But maybe if we take a look now, well, this is our plank line. Our log line is at a rate of 1200. Again, I'm not too sure how accurate that is, given that all of the logs are currently dropping off at the sawmill. So I think we are going to have to wait a bit longer just to see where that lands. But I do know for our planks, we will want this rate at the full 800. And so I think 2 more boats would get us there. Just about. We'll give it some time. See if maybe we can just bump that up over 800 once things even out. But yeah, we can see our line rate is constantly changing, probably due to how unbalanced our vehicles are on this line. But we're up to 1,500, which is just about where we would want to be at our goal of 1,600. And although I'm not a huge fan of how many boats are starting to litter this river, I think we will unlock larger boats soon. That will hopefully cut down on the number of ships that we have to run. If not, we might look into something to decrease the amount of boats that we need, because I feel like this is starting to get to an unrealistic amount of boats. Although, we do have an unrealistic amount of vehicles on some of our other lines, such as this, but I think for boats, they have much more capacity to carry more. For instance, these trucks, given the size of the trucks that we're running, this almost feels realistic if we were just pumping out resources from an area, but this amount of boats just feels a bit excessive for what we're doing. But anyway, moving on from that, we'll give this some more time to even out, and we can come back over to Salt Lake City and make sure things are going well here. And so it looks like we're starting to eat into our tools a bit. We do have a bit of a jam here, and I think it's due to this bus stop. So maybe we can look into a way. We might have to add waypoints to get some of our trucks off of this road. Let's just see where these trucks are going, first of all. For our construction materials line, I think we could move that over one street. So we'll come in, we'll add waypoints here. And then this line coming from here, we'll go through this waypoint. And then I don't think we need to worry about it on the way back, because the buses, I don't believe our buses, actually our buses do take this road back. So we'll just add it, we'll just have this line coming back through this waypoint anyway. Hopefully that should be all that we need to do. It looks like we do have some food trucks still running on steam trucks. So this is something that we desperately need to fix. We'll get those replaced with some of these trucks, and this will put us way over however much we were delivering before. I think we're at about 150, or maybe even 180, I think. So we'll sell a few more of these, get us into a bit more reasonable ballpark. 197 seems about right, so we'll stick with that. That should also help with a lot of this traffic, since we won't have our slow steam trucks moving anymore. And we can see here Salt Lake City is receiving almost all of its resources. I think for the top resource, we're almost never going to be able to fully fulfill that. So 730 food. We're going to have to really overhaul our farms here if we ever want to get that. But that is something we could be doing very soon. But I don't think it's something reasonable that we could do in this video. And so checking up on our Houston train station, I can't tell if our fuel numbers are going down at all. I forgot to check what it was earlier, but we'll take a note that it's around 600 right now, and then we'll wait for the next train to come through, as this one did leave with a full load of what appears to be construction materials and fuel. I'm not sure if that filled all of its cars or not. I suppose we can see in a moment when it comes through here. So it's not a full load of construction materials just yet. That could just be due to the fact that Salt Lake City doesn't need quite as much. Now what we could do is we can start to send construction materials on the way back into Portland, and that'll also help drive up demand. And since we have all these unused flat cars for our return trips, I'm not sure why this train didn't pick up any fuel. Maybe there just wasn't any waiting, but with this line now on our return trip from Salt Lake City, we can now have this also load construction materials, which it has checked. We just need to now deliver those into Portland. And so we can see we already have a stop pretty much right where we would need, right where the fuel line goes. And I think we can just simply add a third terminal, and this will be for construction materials. And we'll grab a very small amount of trucks, as I believe it only needs about 50 construction materials. But we can get that going from here to this stop. We'll make sure to have it loading the correct resource. And so that'll pretty much just help this train continue to be profitable, bringing more resources on the return trip. I'm not sure this one, this one's not carrying anything yet. I don't think the demand was there. So it's going to take a while for that to filter through our systems. And then speaking of our construction materials line, I think we could probably bump this up a bit more since we'll start to have increased demand. And our current demand in Houston isn't currently being met. So perhaps we raise our target to 450, I think, for the construction materials plant. So we'll find our stone trucks. First of all, these can be upgraded with a pretty good upgrade. So we can get these tipper trucks, and that'll actually push us right up to the number that we want. So we don't have to do anything else. We can see here these trucks loading up on some stone. So that's not an issue here. And then if we take a look at our construction material line delivering these resources to Houston, it looks like this stop does cover all of our construction materials. And I believe our line rate did cover the 130 that we need. So I think really it's just a matter of, well, first of all, I think it's just a matter of the industry is splitting its demand between the train station and the city. So hopefully with the increased resources coming in, that won't be much of an issue anymore. We'll just come through, upgrade some more of these trucks, just so we don't end up with the same issue there. We'll go with these flatbed trucks. So that brings our rate up to 330. And if we add those two together, I believe that would add up to about the 500 that we would be requesting. So I don't think there's much more we need to do here. We'll just let our resources start to flow in and pretty much just wait and see what happens. And so one thing I think we can do real quick while we wait for that to happen is we do have this person magnet placed here, and this we said was for a parking lot for all the people that would work here. So I think we'll get a small parking lot placed in here. We'll make sure this is generating enough demand, and then hopefully once we're done with that, we can start to evaluate some of our lines. Alright, now our parking lot area is done here. I think this looks pretty nice. We do actually have a few cars coming into here now, and I think we'll just bump up the capacity a tiny bit. We're not going to go too crazy. We'll just bump it up by 10 more. We can see here in our destinations layer that we do have a few people coming down here for the parking lot, so I think that's actually a perfect number. I think we had like 6 for this road, and then I'm not sure why the number changed, but yeah, we have 7, 10. I think that's a good amount of traffic to be coming down into this area. We can now take a look here as this train comes and drops off a whole load of resources. It's actually going to pick up a good amount, and I think we're finally eating into our fuel surplus that we have here. And I believe this will also leave with a full load of construction materials, so that is also good for us. Yeah, it looks like it's leaving with a full load of construction materials and a full load of fuel. Unfortunately, nothing to put in the boxcars on the way back, but this train should be doing much better now. We can take a look at the finances and see it looks like it's earning more money more frequently, but we are occasionally running pretty much break even on some of our financial periods, but I think this is a pretty good balance for us for now. And so with that, let's take a look at everything we've done in this video, and then when we come back, we'll just double check all the changes that we made, make sure our line rates are correct and nothing's gone too wild while we were gone, and then we will talk about some of our next steps and future projects. Alright, and so now that we're back, let's take a look at all the things we've done so far. So it looks like this train still doesn't have construction materials to go back. Let's just double check that we do have this set up correctly. And so we don't actually have this set up correctly. We forgot that we need to mark it to unload in Portland. So hopefully now we'll start to see that working, as we do have a train coming back. It will take a little bit longer, but so I don't think we'll get to see those construction materials head back in this video, but things here seem to be doing pretty alright. We got a handle on our construction materials. Still looks like some of our tools can go out a bit more, so we'll get 2 more trucks, see if we can continue eating into that surplus. We have a good amount of tools and food waiting to go back to Houston. And then over here, it looks like our boats have evened out a tiny bit. We can take a look at the rate now, and we're at 1,500. I think we're going to leave that, as there's not too much more that we can really do at the moment. Our planks line looks like we definitely overshot this. Or maybe not, actually. I think we could sell just one, because we do want that at about 800. We want to make sure we're definitely over and not under, so that we're fully supplying all the tools needed. But we can see this is producing now 800 tools, even though we might not be able to ship all of them just yet, but we will be getting there shortly. And so I think that pretty much does it for this side of the map. Let's go check on our other cargo hub. And so this one over here, it looks like we were finally able to eat into all these resources that we're waiting to head into Roswell. And it looks like we're handling things pretty well here. Construction materials are a little bit high still, but I think we'll be okay with that. And then let's check in on our chemical plant. Things seem to be doing well here. We have a whole bunch of chemicals waiting to be delivered. And let's just check in on our steel mill, see if maybe things are going well over here. We have a good amount waiting here, but I think we need to really focus on getting more resources into this steel mill, and I think in particular we need to get more iron coming in. And so it's been a while since we've taken a look at these trains coming in here, so I think maybe next video we'll redo these trains. The coal one I'm not too worried about, but this iron ore line, I think we have enough powerful trains that we can effectively make it up this hill to this train station. So I think we're finally ready to get rid of this road, this little connection road, and using these trucks as shuttles. I think we can finally go back to what our original idea was, extending the tracks across here. We'll wrap around this little hump probably once. Hopefully we don't need to do it twice. We'll wrap that around, come over, and then we can connect back up into these tracks out here. And I think we should have a good enough engine by now to be able to handle a train of a pretty decent size. And so hopefully that'll help us get more iron through here, as we won't have to rely on trucks to shuttle into the train station and then the train to head back. I don't think either of these lines will be too profitable, since our coal line already isn't really making us that much money. Our iron line is, but just barely. We'll just have to play around and see what we can do, but I think that'll be one of the first things we do, so that we can start to scale up our goods production line, since steel is obviously what we're lacking on at the moment. And then obviously sometime soon we're going to have to work on this oil well, get this detailed up. I'm not sure if it will be in the next video or the one afterwards, but we will get there eventually. And then taking a look at Roswell, Roswell has pretty much filled up all of this area, so we're in a pretty good spot with Roswell after very extensively working on this city. It does have a very high target population, and it does look like the city is continuing to explode on population, so we've given it more than enough space to grow. Soon we might need to fill out this area and this little peninsula here to allow for some more growth, since these two areas are much closer to the center of the city. I'm not too sure how far out these cities are willing to build, so unfortunately if we build out this area or even all the way out by the airport, I'm not sure if Roswell would necessarily claim that just yet. So we might have to do some tricky things to get this to work out, but that's something for the far future that we're not going to worry about anytime soon. I think another project that's going to come up here pretty soon is Lincoln. Really expanding Lincoln, much like how we did with Tacoma. Expand Lincoln, fill out this whole area. Maybe, I don't think we need this steel mill. We'll probably get rid of this steel mill. Fill out some of the area on top of the hill, and then figure out what we want to do over here by the train tracks. And so then, once we get all that expanded, we can start to just shovel resources into Lincoln from the cargo hub, and really watch this city begin to grow. Tacoma's doing pretty well. We can see it's starting to slowly build out into the suburbs that we built in the last video. This one has a pretty high target population, so again, this city has much more room to grow now. It's not really choked off by anything. Taking a look here at Houston, Houston is actively growing, although it is pretty close to its target population. We might need to extend Houston again sometime soon. We can see it's starting to build its own streets out here. So maybe we fill out more of this area, although it doesn't seem like the city wants to expand this way too much. Maybe we can figure out what we want to do on this side of the train tracks. And then, of course, just extending this grid as far out as the city's willing to grow. But Houston is doing pretty well. Salt Lake City is very much due for another expansion, so maybe we'll fill out this area, get a little road connecting across these little islands here, and then maybe just leave an open-ended connection up into these hills. Now Salt Lake City is going to be interesting because it is already starting to run out of some space, because we have the mountains up here, we have our rail network sort of providing a barrier on this side, and then there's not really much space on these islands for the city to grow, so we'll have to see if maybe filling out this area and these islands will be enough for Salt Lake City, but we can always just expand and see what the city does, as I really don't want to flood this area with buildings, so I'd like to keep at least this area pretty free of Salt Lake City's buildings. Moving on to Portland. Portland is doing just fine. We might need to extend some of its roads as it is also pushing its target population. But I think before we would grow Portland, I want to expand these farms and really ramp up this food processing plant if we were to do that. So if we do get to Portland anytime soon, we would work on these farms first. Allentown is also in need of expansion. We can see it's starting to take over some generated roads to do its own thing. And then Pittsburgh, I think, is doing just fine. It does continue to push farther and farther up the rivers. I think we need to expand over here. And maybe farther down the river this way, on these streets as well. I'm not too sure the best way to grow Pittsburgh, as this probably has the least amount of room of any of our cities, but we'll figure out something to do whenever we do eventually get to Pittsburgh, as Pittsburgh's not really too high up on my list of cities to grow. And then sometime soon, I do want to get back into this lake area and build the sort of downtown area. I think we'll want to expand our cities first before we do that, and then come up here and start from scratch on building a city. But this is a project I haven't forgotten about. It's just other things sort of took over first. But since we do have all resources being made on the map now, I don't think we'll be focusing as much on resources and industries, and it'll be more expanding our streets and moving people around. And so with that, that's going to be all for this video. So if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions or feedback, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.